apparently Aaron Rodgers has been playing through a broken right thumb. Here is the quarterback of the Packers on playing through the injury.
Doesn't make a difference with me playing, you know. That doesn't make a difference. You saw the tape on my thumb, didn't make a difference. I think I've had worse injuries I've played with. So, you know, definitely a challenge, but the days off helped. Feeling better this week. Actually didn't even, you know, want to get x-rayed because I was, you know, still going to play. It doesn't matter what the x-ray showed, but they talked me into it.
Courtney, professional athletes are built different. If I had a broken thumb, I'm not even sure I'd want to be here talking to you on the radio. But they can play through it. Apparently, Aaron Rodgers very much downplaying this injury. He went on to say when he broke his index finger in college, it affected him a lot more than a broken thumb. A thumb still seems very problematic if you're throwing a football on his throwing hand. Is this hot news or not news that Aaron Rodgers has a broken thumb?
I mean, it's hot news in the sense that we find out a reason potentially behind some of their struggles because he hasn't looked right this season. I know that his receivers are young and there hasn't been much chemistry between the two of them. Christian Watson seems to be coming on as of late, but I do think it's newsworthy in that sense because the guy was playing through a broken thumb, and he didn't want to use it as an excuse, which is why when he was on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week, he wouldn't confirm nor deny whether he had a broken finger. It was actually a Make-A-Wish kid who goes by the name of Big B. He's the one who broke this news. That was his, I'm going to read you a tweet. It said, since this is a big talking point today, let's break some news. I asked Rodgers during my Make-A-Wish how his finger is, and he replied that his thumb is actually broken. His thumb was still really bruised and swollen last Saturday. So that comes out. Rodgers addresses it yesterday. And I think it was a wise thing in terms of a perception standpoint for him to downplay this because it looks like the excuse train, even though it's a valid one. If he were to have come out, you know, and started talking about this and blaming it because he was blaming his receivers for a lot of things that were going wrong in the offense earlier this season. What I'm really miffed by, Amber, and this is hot news for me. You got a broken thumb. Why are you not on the injury report?
Well, I think he was, right? It was listed as hurt, I believe.
But, I mean,
he's been very
gone
coy
away.
about it.
Like, hey, did he have surgery? Do we know that?
No, he said no, and he said that he doesn't believe surgery will be required.
To fix a broken
say
thumb.
that. Well, and he was asked on the Pat McAfee show back on October 26th, specifically, did you break your thumb? Because again, he was on the injury report, as I understand it, for a while now with this hurt thumb, and nobody was really, I guess, asking many questions about it. He was asked specifically, and he said, my thumb is hurt, quote unquote. So he did not, in fact, say it was broken. I think it's like what you said, that we're talking about a vet of all vets and Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback that is right now the reigning MVP. He doesn't want it to look like an excuse. So I think that he was playing this smart from, I guess, a media perspective where he's having a bit of a down season. We know that things aren't going well with those receivers, as you mentioned, but it's very clear that this injury is affecting him. I mean, as a whole, his accuracy numbers have been down specifically now that we know that this injury occurred since that injury. He's completed 69.7% of his passes with 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions in the first 5 games of the season. The Packers went 3-2. In the next 6 after that injury, the Packers only have won 1. His completion rate dropped to 62%, 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. It appears to be affecting his performance, but he didn't want to tell us that because he's Aaron Rodgers, Courtney, and vets don't come out here with excuses at that position.
Yeah, I mean, he said that Jeff Tedford, when he was at Cal, I guess he broke one of his other fingers. He kind of detailed that this is not his first rodeo. Granted, your thumb's a little different than other fingers. According to him, though, the index finger is actually more important on your throwing hand as a quarterback, which I can understand you kind of with your follow-through and being able to grip the ball. I digress on that. He said that Jeff Tedford gave him like 1 day, and he said, if you don't come back, then you're going to lose your job, and you're going to go back to being a backup. So I guess that's one way to motivate people. Don't play healthy. Play through it.
That's what they do in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is playing through it. Also, we're waiting to hear if Justin Fields is going to play through it. We heard that Justin Fields is dealing with a shoulder injury. Courtney Cronin covers the Chicago Bears for NFL Nation. She knows all about this. Here was Justin Fields, the Bears quarterback, on his injury.
Just some movements that I do with my arm, it hurts it a good bit. So, like I said, just trying to, work through those motions and kind of get my arm used to moving in those particular motions that, hurt it. So again, just, seeing how my body feels, listening to my body, making sure I'm not, forcing anything and stuff like that. And, just seeing how it goes.
Do you feel today like you could play through this?
Today, probably not. But, good thing we don't play today. We play in 4 days. So we'll see how it feels in 4 days.
He's got a little time to evaluate this to see if he's going to get the go against the Jets, Courtney. I mentioned you cover the Bears. What do you make? Is this hot news or not news, his shoulder injury?
It's hot news because they're continuing on with saying he's day-to-day. And he even talked about the fact that with an AC joint injury, which is what he has in his left shoulder, thank goodness for him, it's not his throwing shoulder, it's his non-throwing shoulder, but that all affects his throwing motion. You can get that thing shot up with Tortorol before a game, and he talked about that. He said he wasn't going to be doing that 2 days before a game to know what it would feel like, that he wouldn't know until game day. So I very much think that this thing is going to go down to the wire, potentially a game time decision to figure out whether Justin Fields can play against the New York Jets in Week 12. I don't think it's the wisest decision by any stretch that he plays. I think that you're looking at the bye in 2 weeks. It's a perfect opportunity to let this thing heal on its own instead of making it worse. But the fact that we're talking about this and going to continue talking about his shoulder without any sort of news coming out that they're going to rest him, kind of like what the Jets made their decision to bench Zach Wilson on Wednesday. The Bears are going to continue this thing on all the way till Sunday. So yeah, it is hot news.
It's hot news because it's Justin Fields and he's a quarterback in the NFL. It should be not news because
they should
be shutting him down. They should be sitting him for weeks. I mean, the Bears aren't winning games anyways, Courtney. This season is already a win, in my opinion, for the Chicago Bears because they've had the opportunity here to evaluate Justin Fields, and we know they have their guy. They're not going to be moving on from him in this next draft. You could shut Justin Fields now down for the rest of the season if you wanted to, if you were the Bears. You're not making the playoffs this season. That's not even the goal, right? This is a rebuilding thing. You tore this thing down to the studs. You're building it back up. You had to find out from this staff and this front office if Justin Fields was going to move forward with them. And it appears Justin Fields is good enough to move forward with them. And you already know that at this point. So what's the point of pushing him?
According to Matt Eberflus, it's that they're still trying to win games. And I understand that this team has been very close in that, when you talk about tanking, you talk about draft positioning, the team's not worried about that, in games. If you got a close game, they want to go out and win that. They've lost 4 games in a row. The offense has had multiple chances to lead game-winning drives, and they've failed at doing that. There's still plenty to evaluate Justin Fields on here. Yes, we know he's a dynamic runner, but as a passing quarterback, passing from the pocket, building his pocket presence, that's something that they still need to evaluate him on. So I don't think the right thing would be to shut him down for the season. Doesn't seem like that's on the table. But taking 2 weeks here, getting your Week 14 bye, which we could all use, reporters included, and then having 4 games at the end of the season to truly hone in on some of his passing concepts, that's the way to play this thing. So if you're asking me right now, I don't think he plays Sunday. I think that they're going to continue this thing on, continue some of the gamesmanship, because you do have to give the Jets, the pretense that Fields may play. He's a very different quarterback than Trevor Siemian. You're probably not using somebody to spy on Trevor Siemian the way that you would Justin Fields. Robert Saleh said that this is supposed to be a reset for Zach Wilson, not a season-long thing. At least he doesn't anticipate that right now. But how likely is it in your eyes that he never gets his job back with the Jets?
Well, I think he'll probably get another opportunity. I mean, the contract, if he was a 5th-round pick, maybe he'd never see the field again. But when there's money involved and high draft pick, 1st-round pick, there's always going to be other chances. I mean, it's just the way it is. So I think that this is probably something, the reset could be to try and motivate him. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it doesn't motivate him. But at the end of the day, behind his name, there's a contract. Behind that contract, millions of dollars. Usually that means more opportunity.
Rob Ninkovich, ESPN NFL analyst, joining us here on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Amber Wilson and Courtney Cronin filling in for the guys. And Nink, One of my issues with this situation surrounding Zach Wilson is it feels like we're piling on because Zach Wilson gave a one-syllable answer to a single question at a press conference. You mentioned he's 23 years old. He is a young kid. He is learning. I'm guessing he will never utter the word no again at a press conference because of the media storm that followed. But you mentioned that it does affect the locker room. So how could Zach Wilson go in there and win back the locker room?
Well, I don't think any of us know behind closed doors. Maybe he did come in and address the team. Maybe he did say something like, guys, listen, I'm sorry. I was in a moment. I didn't realize, the magnitude of what that response would bring. And I'm here to just continue to work hard and gain the respect of you guys and my teammates. So maybe that happened. I think it was just the mannerisms that he had. He tickled the nose after the no, move on, next question, leave me alone with that silly stuff. I think that's more the response. And I'm sure, his agent or whoever is advising him probably said, you need to have a little bit more, I guess,